The richest person in the graveyard, the retirement trap nobody talks about. Today's video is about the question almost nobody in financial media is willing to answer honestly, which is what you're supposed to do when your retirement plan starts working too well. We're going to walk through how a smart, evidence-based planner adjusts the math when you realize 5 years in that you're not just surviving retirement, you're winning it. A comment landed in my inbox last week that I've been chewing on for days. Here is roughly what the viewer, we'll call him Sean, wrote. He likes the cautious approach, but for someone who also wants to enjoy retirement, how do you adjust when things go better than expected? If 5 years in his portfolio is bigger than the day he retired, he is not trying to be the richest guy in the graveyard. He wants to die closer to zero, and he is asking how to know whether he is spending the right amount, what to do with the surplus, and how to pull back if markets eventually turn. Hey everyone, I'm Aaron. Welcome back to the channel. Sean isn't asking the survival question. He is asking the optimization question, which is a completely different conversation with completely different numbers behind it. Research from David Blanchett, formerly head of retirement research at Morningstar, and Michael Finke at the American College has consistently shown that the average American retiree withdraws somewhere between 1.9 and 2.5% of their portfolio each year, which is not 4, not even 3, but under 2.5. The EBRI study published in April of 2026 found that roughly a third of middle income and high income retirees still had 100% or more of their starting assets. 21 to 22 years into retirement, 2 decades in the pile is the same size or bigger. Meanwhile, Allianz Life S 2026 Retirement Street, UD reports that 67% of Americans are now more afraid of running out of money than of dying, a record high. Most retirees are terrified of going broke. Most never come anywhere close. And in the middle sits a generation of people who saved for 40 years and then never gave themselves permission to use any of it. Step 1, start conservative on purpose. The first 5 to 10 years of retirement matter wildly more than the years that follow because of something called sequence of returns risk. Bill Benjamin's original 1994 research gave us the famous 4% rule. But Benjamin himself has stated publicly that 4% was always a worst case floor and never a spending target. And most retirees who followed it ended up dying with more money than they retired with. Morningstar's annual State of Retirement Income report shows sustainable starting withdrawal rates float somewhere in the 3.5 to 5% range depending on bond yields and market valuations, which means there is no single forever number. In practice, you start with a conservative withdrawal rate, build guardrails into the plan. Hold 1 to 2 years of expenses in cash so you're never forced to sell stocks in a downturn, and cover essentials with reliable income from Social Security, a pension, an annuity, or a bond ladder. If your portfolio takes a 30% hit in year 2 while you're still drawing aggressively, you can do permanent damage to the math. Step 2, reevaluate every single year. Your financial plan is a living document, not a tattoo and not a will. A good planner runs the same questions annually, including what the portfolio is actually worth, how today's withdrawal rate compares to today's balance, where markets sit, and whether anything has shifted about health, family, or legacy goals. Sean is quietly asking what happens when 5 years go by and the scary scenario never shows up, which matters because by year 5, the math almost certainly looks very different than it did on day 1. Step 3, stop measuring your withdrawal rate and start measuring your funded status. Institutional pensions don't obsess over a 4% rule. They ask one question constantly, which is how funded are we relative to our remaining liabilities? Translate that to a household, and it looks like this. On day 1, you have a $2 million portfolio and an $80,000 spending target, a 4% withdrawal across a 30-year horizon with sequence risk running high. Fast forward 5 years, the portfolio has grown to $3.4 million. Your horizon now sits closer to 25 years. Social Security may already be flowing, and you've survived the part of the journey statistically most likely to wreck you. Your funded status hasn't improved a little. It has improved dramatically, which means the spending number you launched with is almost certainly too conservative for the person you are today. Step 4, raise spending using guardrails. In a now classic 2006 paper, financial planner Jonathan Guyton and computer scientist William Klinger laid out a simple idea, which is that you put bands around your withdrawal rate with an upper and lower guardrail. When the portfolio runs ahead of plan, your withdrawal rate drops below the lower band, and that is your signal to give yourself a raise of roughly 5 to 10%. When the portfolio falls behind, the rate creeps above the upper band, and you trim discretionary spending by about 10%, anywhere in between. You stay the course. Michael Kitzes has written about this at length, where his consistent point is that the biggest barrier to retiree spending is rarely the math. It is the head. Most retirees aren't underspending because they ran the calculations. They're underspending because nobody ever explicitly told them they were allowed to spend more. Step 5, split your spending into 2 buckets. Bucket 1 is essential spending, which covers housing, food, healthcare, insurance, utilities, and basic transportation. And you want it funded by reliable income from Social Security, pensions, an annuity, or a bond ladder. This is your floor, and the floor never breaks. Bucket 2 is the flexible side, which includes travel, gifts to grandkids, hobbies, dining out, the new car, and the big trip. And this bucket flexes with the market. Once you know the essentials are bulletproof, spending out of the discretionary bucket becomes dramatically easier because it stops feeling like a threat to your future. Step 6, set a floor and a ceiling. Sit down with your spouse at the kitchen table and define it out loud. We never spend less than $75,000 a year. Our comfortable range is 90 to 120. And if the portfolio runs well ahead of plan, we push toward more travel, more family gifting, and more experiences. That structure converts the vague background hum of "I hope this works out" into a plan with actual rules. Step 7, honor the retirement spending smile. In 2014, David Blanchett published landmark work showing that real retirement spending doesn't climb steadily with inflation, it curves. Spending runs highest in early retirement during the go years, dips through the middle slow go years when people naturally do less, then ticks up slightly during the no-go years driven by healthcare costs. Blanchett's data found average real spending actually declined roughly 1% per year. From age 60 to 90, the opposite direction. Most people assume if you're healthy and your portfolio is ahead of plan in your first decade of retirement, you should probably be spending more rather than less, because the trip to Italy at 65 is not the same trip at 80. And the grandkids you take to Disney at 67 are not the grandkids you can take at 82. Bill Perkins makes this argument in Die with Zero, where his core claim is that most people save too much for too late, for a future self who may not be there to enjoy any of it. Step 8, respect longevity risk, because dying with zero is harder than it sounds. I agree with the spirit of Sean's question, but mathematically, dying with zero is brutal to execute because you'd have to know your death date. For a healthy couple retiring at 65, there is roughly a 50% chance at least one of them lives into their 90s. And long-term care, if it shows up regularly, runs $100,000 a year or more. Fidelity S2025 estimate puts healthcare alone at around $172,500 over the course of retirement. For a 65-year-old retiring today, and that figure explicitly excludes long-term care. The sophisticated version of Die with Zero is to spend dynamically, spend joyfully in the years you're healthy, but keep a longevity reserve and a care reserve sitting quietly in the background, because optionality at 90 is often worth more than one extra cruise at 75. When your portfolio is materially ahead of plan 5 to 10 years in, the plan needs to evolve from capital preservation toward lifestyle optimization. You adjust dynamically based on 6 inputs: your remaining time horizon, your funded ratio, your guaranteed income, your health, market valuations, and your built-in flexibility. The research from Finke and Blanchett consistently shows the average American retiree withdraws only 1.9 to 2.5% a year. Many die with more than they retired with, and a generation spent decades afraid of a problem that never arrived. That is the trap Sean was sniffing out without quite naming it, which is that a plan that never gets updated is an obsolete plan. If you're in retirement or close to it, don't freeze your plan in year 1. Build something that breathes and revisit it every single year. The point of saving for 4 decades isn't to win the contest for the biggest pile at the end. It is to fund a life well lived along the way. Drop your questions below. I read all of them, and some of the best ones turn into entire videos. I'll see you in the next one.